In the days of Noah, sex was the outstanding destruction of that country, of that time. Sex was the outstanding destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and also will be the outstanding destruction. What it is lose their morals. And anytime men lose their morals, they forget God, and then when they do away with God, and then you look out, something is going to happen. And that's what he's simply saying. So when we leave out, this thing will be turned over to the devil and his angels and the one world government and the one world religion and the beast and the false prophet and the little horn land of sin will take over, and all ruled with the power of the devil. Can you imagine being here on the earth at that time? I wouldn't even venture to want to be here. But let me go over in Daniel. I'm going to have to stay in Daniel quite a bit. And now, over in Daniel chapter 8. Now, in chapter 8, we find another mention of a horn. This is not the little horn in chapter 7. But he said in verse 8, and there was a he-goat mixed with very great and wax very great, and when it was strong, and great horn was broken, and it came to pass 4 noble ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. Now out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great, towards the south, towards the east, and towards the promised land, or pleasant land. And it was waxed great, and he was to the host of the heaven, and it was cast down some of the host of them of the stars to the ground, and trampled upon them. Now this great image, he said, yet, and he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. Remember this in Daniel chapter 9. And the place of his sanctuary was cast down, and the host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and portrayed and prospered. And then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint saying unto them, that certain saint which spoke, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation? And he gave both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled under feet. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleaned. And then Daniel goes on to talk about the appearance of this man, and down in verse 25. And through his policy also he shall cause craftsmen to prosper in his hand, and he shall manifest himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. And he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without a hand. Now, of course, we're talking about this individual that rises up. They were talking about here in Daniel. Then Daniel in chapter 9, and it said in verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, that shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks, and the streets shall be built again, and the wall even in troubled times. And after 62 weeks shall the Messiah be cut off. This is the crucifixion of Christ, but not of himself. And the people of the Prince that we read about that shall come shall destroy the city, the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of war, desolation are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant. He will go along with Israel to start up sacrificing and worshiping just like he did in the days of Moses. But in the first half of the 7 years, and many of them for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he, get that word he again, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And then over in Matthew 24, and Daniel there will start coming to pass. And for the overspreading among the nation, he shall make it desolate, until there comes a nation, and that determined shall be poured up on the desolate. Now this is notice how he don't come in destroying, he don't come in claiming to be anything, he just moves in a peaceful manner. Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21. This is Artipas Hippopotamus, which is a type of. And in this estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peacefully, and obtain the kingdom by flattery. And with the arms of his flood shall they be overflowed from before him, and he shall be broken, yet also the prince of the covenant. And so this was, then that area is the Artipas Hippopotamus, which is a type of. And then down in verse 36, or verse 35, and the same, and some of them understanding shall fall, to try them and to purge and to make them white. This is bringing some of them out. Even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. And the king shall do according to his will, and that he, again, shall exalt himself and manifest himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his father, have somewhat of Jewish blood, neither the desire of the woman to be the one to bring forth the man-child of the Messiah, which you're trying to do today. He will not honor those Jewish women for that. Neither regard any God, for he himself shall manifest himself above all. But in his estate shall he honor the God of force, just enough to get Jews on his side, and of the God whom his father knoweth not, Muslim world, shall he honor with gold and silver, and with precious stones and pleasant things. And thus shall he do in the most stronghold with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, giving power back to the devil and the beast and the false prophet and the little horn. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south come against him, and so on. Now this gets back into another story. But then in verse 13, or chapter 12, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of Israel, or the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. This is in the book of Israel. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake during the tribulation, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise or endure shall shine as the brightness of the firmament in the millennium. And they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Then it was told Daniel, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And he said, in verse 8, and I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Now what he said is they're sealed, stopped right here until John the Revelator comes along, which was some 500-600 years later. Many shall be purified and made white, tried, but the wicked shall do wickedness, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Then he goes into the sacrifice being taken away, and the 3.5 years in a period of time after that. But I won't have time to get in all of this tonight, because this is an important chapter that we're in here. And so I'm going to stop right here in this 14th, coming up here to the 14th chapter right here. But you see, now, when you look at this, what we're seeing is exactly what Revelation is showing us here. The fire comes down here, the beast, the false prophet. Now still, we're getting into the knowledge of the thing. We're getting into the, you might say, the icing of the cake. If we just hang in there, we'll put it all together before we get out. Boy, I've got you hung out on a limb, I bet you. And but one of these days, before we get through here, I hope to get you out there and gather some fruit. If I might cut the limb off on you. But anyway, this is where we're at here tonight. All right. Okay. Gail, come on and let's sing the song. Now next week, we'll get some more on this false prophet. I want to get in this week. I want to slowly, but we want to get complete understanding of what we're into before we get into it. But just imagine these things are coming to pass. Television, computer, and eventually, that in this computer, that every person in the world shall be computed into this big computer. Now, I don't know that. I just hear people talking about it. But I do know that they are putting everything to computer today. They'll know if you've got a knife or a pocket knife. They'll know how much money you make. They know how many people in your family, what their names is, how old they are, and all of that will be computed. And all this false prophet has to do to get rid of anything, just go here and worship this image and say, give me a name of somebody over in America. And thing will just fade right out to it. And that's the way it is. But that's the knowledge of man and the wisdom of man that Daniel said will increase in the last days. Television will play a big part in these two witnesses going up. The television camera will be there when they call us into heaven. And so every eye should see them going. Which will probably be coming day that television talk back to you. Tell you what you're supposed to be doing, what you're not doing right in the house. All right. Go ahead. Glory of God. And in seeing the glory of God, he's seen a wheel within a wheel. And then he's seen the Spirit of the Lord and all the heavenly hosts. And they were together moving up and down throughout the world, or going straight forward throughout the universe. In this particular situation here, we find that we're seeing the rise of the devil with all of his instruments and all the ones that he is coming to know here as his power released upon the earth. So this is more or less showing here the devil's power. Now, of course, the dragon is involved in here. He's right in here. So this little picture area right here shows that John standing up here and he's seeing all this right here. And when he got into chapter 11 or chapter 13 and look verse 11, I'll stop and pause here. And this is the white horse rider, the black horse rider, and the pale horse rider. Instead of putting all three of the horses in there, I just colored the horse, each color representing these horses out of the 6th chapter of Revelation, and the man with the bow and no arrow sitting on the horse. Then the false Bible led it to us, that will be expounded out of the mouth of the beast as a lion. This beast here out of the sea, the man of sin, and the false prophet, the serpent, the little horn, the healed head of the Roman Empire, the 10 horns of the 10 common market nations, or of the 10 toes of the image that Daniel seen in chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. And the 10 kings here, representing 10 kingdoms and 10 kings. And then the little horn that rises up in the midst here. I keep placing this little horn in the center of the Roman Empire. And here is the lamb that rose up here with 2 horns, or the individual rose up here out of the earth, the beast, with 2 horns like a lamb, and the frog and the dragon, and that all pulled together here. So as you would use the thought of God's glory out of Ezekiel 1, you use this is the power of Satan, all pulling together in one lump, that they might be able to control the earth and mankind upon the earth. We fight against principality and the power of the air, which is Satan himself, and spiritual wickedness in high places today. But the Holy Ghost keeps things under control today. You and I are comforted even in times of trouble and sorrow, heartache. And but nevertheless, one of these days the devil is going to be turned loose upon this earth. You say, well, I thought he's already here. Well, he is. He's the principality and the power of the air. But the Bible in Revelation 12 says that he's going to be cast out upon the earth, and his angels with him. And all the inhabitants on the earth because of it. And then this is the fire proceeding into heaven, showing miracles and signs. People that live the miracles today will not be very hard persuaded once the church is going out. Because they look into miracles, they watch miracles today to get involved in Christianity, which a lot of times it ain't got anything to really do with Christianity. But I believe in the healing power, and misunderstand. But folks are using it today to hide their pocketbooks and things. Now this is the false prophet standing in the midst here with a little horn. Now the false prophet is identified as rising up as a deceiver. The little horn is rising up here amongst the 10 nations. The common market nations it talks about, he rises up in the midst of the week, and the false prophet rises up at the beginning. Daniel in chapter 13, chapter 7 and chapter 2 plays a great part in the rise of this little horn. And then the false prophet that shall rise along with him. He is a deceiver. The Lord talks about many false prophets rising up, false Christ, Antichrist in the last days. And so this represents the rise of them all together in the unity. And of course, 3 of them are identified as clay. Now what the clay is amongst the stone, or the iron is that Daniel says it mixes with the seed of man. And this makes the weakness. This is, you might more or less say, the downfall of Satan because he tries to use man for his instrument, and this shows a weakness, whether it's in a nation or whether it's in knowledge or whatever. And then this is the image. I do not know if this image will look exactly like this. In fact, I'm just drawing according to what Daniel chapter 2 saw in the image of Nebuchadnezzar, and it'll be similar to that image. And so I used the image of Nebuchadnezzar to put this image in existence here. Head of gold, and the brass and the silver and all this, made this image up. And of course, the two legs of the image was fallen into the Roman Empire, which was separated and that during the years into two kingdoms. And so they all pulled together in the 10 Commonwealth nations, and that is being taken care of and coming to pass in the day that you and I are living now. And so this is just to point out to you a little bit about what is taking place. Then, of course, television, radio, newspapers, and news media will play a big part in advertising and exposing the 360s and exposing the power of the devil. Because you see, man don't have a whole lot of control over what comes across air today. But in that day, he won't have no control because he'll strictly take it over. And then this will be Satan and all his powers moving upon mankind. And then we find here, when he got out of this chapter 13, and we'll be dropping back into 4 here, so it's the reason we're going through it. But we move into chapter 14 here, and it says that, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, or Sinai, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of great trumpet. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harp. And they sang, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the 4 beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. For these are they which have not defiled themselves with women and virgins and so on. And it's telling about these are young men. And he says, and out there was no nothing in their mouth was found no God, and they are without fault before the throne of God. Now, what has taken place here is these represents Israel as the first fruit to accept Jesus Christ as the true Messiah to Israel. And when they accepted him, they were chosen out of the tribes of Israel. You know, excluding Daniel wasn't in this group, and so we find a lot about him in Genesis, another part of the book, where that comes in there at. And so we find then that Jesus was using these to evangelize upon the earth, and that especially to the house of Israel. Their message is that the Lamb of God, or the King of Israel, has arose, and he's standing on Mount Zion. Now we get him on this mountain later on, and the things that he will be doing here on this mountain. But in the meantime, during this period of time, these will do evangelist work, winning souls for Jesus, winning the house of Israel over to accept Jesus, and also the 2 witnesses, the 2 that was failed, that was taken and slain, and then rose up again in chapter 11. And so they are all witness for the Lord doing the latter part, especially of the 7-year period. And so then we find that they, wherever they went, Jesus went with them, and wherever Jesus went, they were with him, doing this part of the second half of the tribulation. And noticing what took place here, we found that when the Antichrist rose up and began to take over in Jerusalem, that Jesus commanded Israel to flee out of there. Now this would be in the midst of the week. And of course they came out, or will come out, and be taken care of during that latter half, because if he had not shortened the days for them, there's no flesh to be saved, because this is especially a time for Israel. And so we find then that they will be evangelizing with the Lord during this period of time. Now these were individual, well, you want to call them preachers, but they're more or less like missionaries and preachers, identifying the Lord Jesus, singing the song of the house of Israel, that they look for the Messiah to come. And here he is, here on the Mount Zion. This is right outside of Jerusalem. It's actually visualizing Jesus standing here with the 144,000, but then they have their job to do during the latter part of the tribulation. And then he said that the voice, John said, that I heard coming down here from heaven, identifying these men and what type of individuals they were. And of course, a Jewish boy around 12 is considered a man. He comes out from under his mother's and daddy's household rule, and he is responsible for more or less himself. These are the harping on the harp and the four beasts. And when these four beasts appears, always that means God is present in some form or another. So I put a rainbow here with a little image of some eyes and nose and a mouth, which is not the image of God, but just representing the fact that he has eyes, nose, and mouth. And he said, you see the rainbow and so on, you remember what happened in the days of Noah, and it'll not happen again. And of course the Bible talks about the rainbow being over his head and the colors and so on. And so we put in the colors. The colors are really important in a lot of cases throughout this chart. And so then we find the elders sitting here, 4 and 20. I've only got two of it, 4 and 20. Now that represents the Lord's group of folks during this time. And this over here in the beginning represents the devil's group of folks during this time. And so we find then that he said, I saw another angel here flying through the midst of heaven. Now he was have the everlasting gospel. Now what is his gospel? It's not exactly preaching that you're saved by grace. But what he is preaching is the judgment of God is come. It's particularly his message of the government or the judgment of God has fell upon man, and it's time for man to repent. Now this is more or less the gospel that we're talking about that should be preached to all the world, and a lot of people think we're supposed to do that, but eventually the angels will get it done, because this is preaching to everyone on earth as he flies through the midst of heaven. I don't believe this will be our plane flying over with a loudspeaker or nothing on it. It'll be simply just what the Bible said. He got an angel prepared to go fly through the earth, through the heavens, and preaching the gospel. And he said, preaching unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, and saying with a loud voice, fear God. And of course, you go back into Ecclesiastes, and the very last few verses of that book, and it says, here's the conclusion of the whole thing: fear God and keep his commandments. And so this message is moving back. Even today we're preaching, fear God and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. But he said, fear God, for the hour of his judgment is come. And he said, and worship him, and that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of the water. And there fell another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Of course, you know, this will happen over in the 18th chapter. If we get over there, and the great city will be divided, because she has made many our nations drunk with the wine of her wrath and of her fornication. Now, this is the one world religion. The word Babylon means confusion. So it'll be a confused religion, which actually comes out of Rome. So that would put us in the category of the Roman Empire or the Roman religion. Now then, looking at this, you have two Bibles identified. One is of the government, which is headed up of the little horns, the 10 horns, and so on. Then the other is, of course, the Roman Empire itself, which is amongst those governments and nations are the 10 horns. And so then we have the religious Babylon, which is also will be here during that time. And they will say that they had him, which they don't have, and so on. And so this will be that taking place there. Then he said, I saw a third angel now. This is coming between here, announcing the fall of the Babylon Empire. And then the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, his mark is in, receive his mark in their forehead or in their hand, you see, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture unto the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Now this is a warning message here from this angel. I tell them, folks, don't believe this. If they say you have to have the mark of the beast or his number 9, don't believe that, because they're lying to you, and don't receive that. Now this will help folks endure to the end. Of course, a lot of Israelites will still be in Jerusalem under the great persecution and so on, and a lot has fled out to be protected during this latter part. But there's going to be a group of them that remains still in the area of Jerusalem, and they'll be subject to all manner of fight. And then he said, and the smoke of their torment ascend up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night. They who worship what? The beast. Now what he's saying is, when they receive it, there's simply no hope. Now then, in the day that we live in, we have blaspheming the Holy Ghost, calling the Holy Ghost a Beelzebub, to put a unpardoned sin in a man's life. In other words, you never be able to get saved. And if a fellow does that ignorantly, I don't think the Lord holds him against it. But if he does it, say like Miss O'Hara or the atheists and stuff like that, then they are lost their place, part out of the book. They have no place there. And so then we find that he was given a warning here, telling what happens to the folks that receives it. Now, this will be messages that will be declared during the tribulation time, and especially the latter part of it. And then he said, here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that kept the commandments of God and have faith and have the faith in Jesus Christ. And so these are those that really staying in there, you might say, or enduring to the end. Then you have the saints that are identified as the great multitude which no man can number. Now these are they which have worshiped God and believed in the Lord Jesus Christ and have been martyred for their belief and for their faith in the Lord. And he said they have a special blessing. They'll get to serve God throughout all eternity. They'll not be a part of the bride. Now remember, I've had people say, well, I don't believe the church can bring forth souls after it's gone. Well, now the church is a different situation altogether. It's born during the grace period. And when Jesus stops the grace period of the catching out of the church, these folks will not be a part of the bride.